How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson across America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I actually have to start here in my backyard today in Middle Georgia for a story that is going to impact every single one of you in every part of the country. It actually is relevant to all of you. Those of you in Texas need to pay attention to this as you consider Ken Paxton and now Don Huffines, who's running for comptroller there, who bought Jeffrey Epstein's sex dungeon in the desert and tried to cover up that he bought it. That's been exposed. I don't know if you heard yesterday, Huffines is running for comptroller in Texas. He bought Jeffrey Epstein's ranch in New Mexico, tried to cover up that he bought it. It has been discovered. I was like, oh, well, the money went to the victims. I'm sorry, but why were you trying to cover it up? The ads write themselves for female voters to reject this guy and Ken Paxton in Texas. You guys need to pay attention to this. This is happening today here in Middle Georgia where I am. I'm broadcasting you from where I live in Macon, Georgia, high atop the Fickling building in downtown Macon, Georgia. And there is a special election here for the state Senate today. And I need to describe this for you. The district is 60+% Republican. And the Democrats might just win it today. In fact, I saw out of my window here, there's a bridge that goes over a river through the middle of the city, and there was a Black Lives Matters van that went past my window. It was a 15-passenger van, and they were going to find voters, Democratic voters, and get them to the polls because Republicans are simply not turning out today. This special election where I am covers all of Monroe County, northern Bibb County, northern Houston County, Peach County, Crawford County, Upson County, and Middle Georgia. My friend John Kennedy is running for the lieutenant governor spot, so he stepped aside from the state Senate to be able to run for that race. This is a special election. They've rushed it so they can get the winner to the state Senate. And the Democrats nationwide have poured into Middle Georgia resources to win a state Senate district that in a normal election would go to the Republicans by about a 40-point margin. They're doing this everywhere. And you need to be aware of this. They're using these special elections, particularly in southern states, as trial runs for a midterm effort in November. So take the Texas State Senate District 9. The former senator from that district is now the comptroller in Texas. He is being challenged by the man who bought Jeffrey Epstein's ranch. He left behind a state Senate district. He was appointed by Governor Abbott in Texas to be the comptroller, leaving behind his state Senate district. They had a special election. Donald Trump won that district in November of 2024 by 17 points. It just swung the other way to the Democrats. The Democrats won a seat that the Republican state senator had last won it by about 20 points, outperforming Donald Trump. And the Democrats just picked it up with a 14-point margin over the Republican. Because the Democrats engaged in the ground game in ways the Republicans seemingly have failed to do, particularly in Republican states. Here in Georgia, there was a state Senate district or state House district that has been Republican for the last 20 years. It got picked up by a Democrat in a special election. Why? Because Republicans didn't show up to vote. It's a Republican district. Donald Trump won it by 20-some points in 2024. And Republicans simply didn't show up. The state party in Georgia has been beset with all sorts of dysfunction and infighting. The chairman's a great guy. The party itself is failing to perform. Outside groups are having to come in and rescue Republicans. The guy who should win, his name is Steve McNeil. I'll be voting for him this afternoon here in Middle Georgia. If you're listening on WMAC here in Middle Georgia, you got to go vote. His campaign can't do it all. They don't have the money to be able to rent the passenger vans. Guess what? The Democrats have come in and rented most of them. The Democrats are going into the district. They're finding black voters in particular, and they're driving them to the polls to vote for the Democrat. And what they're not telling the black voters is that the Democrat actually is a communist. And I don't say that lightly. He actually is a communist, proudly communist. He's backed by the Democratic Socialists of America. He's backed by the Working Families Party. He's backed by Fair Fight Georgia. He is a far left radical. In fact, I've got several Democratic friends of mine in the state legislature who are horrified this guy might win. The Democrat might win. The Democrats are horrified. This guy's so far left, he might win, but he might win because Republicans have stopped showing up to vote. They think they did it all in 2024. They got Trump across the finish line, and now they're like, well, that's that. I'm done. The end of history. It's wild to see this happening in my backyard. And what's happening in my backyard in a very strong swing district, or a very strong Republican district. It's not a swing district, and it's about to swing to the Democrats if Republicans don't show up today. Is going to happen in your backyard, too. Whether you're in Tennessee or North Carolina, whether you're in Illinois, whether you're in Ohio, whether you're in Florida or Texas, Montana, the Democrats with outside donors, and this is one of the things the Democrats are doing. You're thinking, well, Erickson, I read in the paper that the Democrats are like, they don't have any money. The Republicans have so much more money than them in the bank. Yes, because the Democrats are relying on third-party groups that do not have to disclose their money. They're relying on dark money groups that don't disclose to the FEC. So those are the ones renting the 15-passenger vans. You don't see about it in the campaign finance disclosures. Those are the ones running ads. Those are the ones sending in volunteers knocking on doors. You don't see it. You don't have it. You haven't connected to it. It's happening under the radar. It's happening under your nose. It is happening in my backyard, and it's going to happen in your backyard wherever you live. So Republicans, you better be prepared. You better be on your A game. And that is also why candidates matter. Because you're going to have a lot of independent voters who side with the Democrats because they're exhausted by President Trump. So you've got to have candidates who can knock on doors and make the case that not all politics is about Washington, D.C. Constituent services, local issues matter. You are aligned with the personal local issues. You've got to be able to engage in that level. You've got to have great candidates. That's why Ken Paxton in Texas is such a dangerous thing, because Paxton is so bad on a host of ethics issues, on his affairs on his wife and the like. You're going to have a lot of voters who might vote Republican who decide, you know what, this disgusts me. The Republicans are becoming as bad as the Democrats. I'm either going to stay home or I'm going to vote Democrat. And meanwhile, the Democrats are out there busing people to the polls to vote. And by the way, it's perfectly legal. When I was running campaigns, it's one of the tactics we would use. Rent 15-passenger vans. On one race, we actually rented a bunch of 15-passenger vans and never used them. We just rented them so the Democrats couldn't use them. Our voters showed up. Republicans don't show up anymore. Republican Party operatives, if you're listening right now, you have a real problem, and you know you have this problem. Your Republican voters are not showing up without Donald Trump on the ballot. And you got to figure out a way to get Republicans to the polls. It's a real problem that the party knows it has, and there's so much dysfunction at the state level that we could really see doom come in November just because Republicans forget to go vote while the Democrats mobilize. While all of that is happening in my backyard, away from me in tragedy in Rhode Island, a man has tried to kill his whole family. He was successful in killing his wife and I think one of his children and himself. And the media will move on rapidly from the story because this man identified as a woman. This man clearly had mental health issues. He was a Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens fan, apparently, and also trans. His father-in-law pushed him out of their home because of his mental health and deranged behavior and his transition. He didn't just transition to identifying as a female, he went all in on the surgery. What's also notable is a white male, decided to identify as a Latinx female, a Latinx female. Total nut job. And it's already buried in the press, by the way. There is not a whole lot in the press. The New York Times didn't identify him as trans. The New York Times said he went by two names. You had to read into the story. There were, he went by Robert and he went by Roberta. He went by like Roberta Hernandez or something like that. He embraced a Hispanic last name. And he attempted to murder his wife and all of his children at a hockey game and killed himself. A long line of trans violence that is growing in the United States. Now, this will be a little controversial for some of you. In the United Kingdom, there are a growing number in urban areas of no-go zones that are populated by Islamic radical immigrants who have refused to assimilate. In some parts of the United Kingdom, there are rape gangs of Islamic, mostly Pakistani men who have been raping young white girls, and the police in these communities have protected the rapists, not the girls. Because the police in some of these communities, like Rotherham, for example, decided there would be social unrest from the Muslims if they went after the rape gangs. In one community, a father went to rescue his daughter from a rape gang, and the police arrested the father and allowed the daughter to continue to be raped by the Islamic fundamentalists who refused to assimilate. That story doesn't sound like it could possibly be true, and yet it is, and it's been well documented in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has gone so far now as to order the National Health Service to stop discouraging first cousin marriages because it's so common in the Muslim community. The United Kingdom has not only given up on assimilation, they hold out great shame over being white colonizers. The media refuses to report it, and the politicians refuse to condemn it and police it and ban it. What is happening with the no-go zones and the Islamic radicals failing to assimilate in Great Britain is happening here with the trans community, which is increasingly violent. We've had a series of mass shootings in schools, in churches, now at a hockey game by transgender people who clearly are suffering mental health. It gets buried by the press and uncommented on by the politicians because they've decided to mainstream it, to allow it to happen. They find virtuousness in turning a blind eye to the growing violence of the trans community. It really is no different from the Islamic radical community in Great Britain that the press and the Democrat or the liberal politicians there have refused to condemn or deal with. They won't talk about the trans violence in this country. They simply move on to a new story. And their justification is, hey, this country always moves on from mass shootings. We're going to move on from this one too. You had the trans shooter in Nashville, a trans shooter in Denver, a trans shooter at the church in Minnesota. You've got this guy and many others, because they're suffering from mental health and they are turning violent. And neither the press nor the Democrats can comment on it because they enable the conditions by which it is happening. But we have yet another trans shooter in this country engaged in mass violence, this time trying to kill his whole family. And the press is already burying the story because, God forbid, we actually recognize that so much of what we have normalized is actually mental illness. By the way, you should know that this Robert Durango, he called himself Roberta Durango, shooter, his insurance paid for everything. Absolutely everything, according to his Twitter account before he committed mass murder. Wow. All right, I got to mention something. I don't know if there are any executives from Circle K listening, but I've had to stop getting gas at my local Circle K because they have embraced now the blight of the advertisements at the gas pump. And not only have they embraced the blight of the advertisements at the gas pump, but they are exceedingly loud, so loud, so obnoxious.
With loyalty. Terms and conditions apply.
That is me standing by my car recording on my cell phone. That's how loud it is. Can we please ban the ads at the gas pump? We're already paying, what, $2+ a gallon, $3+ a gallon, and they want to like destroy our eardrums with the advertisements that we can't. You used to be able to, and some of you say, but if you push one of the buttons, you can turn it to mute. No, you can't anymore. They're getting rid of that. Can't do it on this one. I've stopped. There is, God bless them, Quick Trip and Buc-ee's. I don't know what your big chains are in your areas, but I got a Quick Trip and a Buc-ee's. And I've stopped going to the gas station by my house because I'm so tired at the Circle K of the loud, super loud ads. It's just they want to shove ads into anything to make an extra buck. I'm already paying you for the gas. Let me have peace and quiet. Quick Trip seems to get it. God bless them. Buc-ee's seems to get it. God bless them. But a lot of these, the local Shell station and the Circle K by my house, nope. They want to bombard me with Maria Menounos and ads for some sort of nicotine product and monster drinks, and they're yelling at me the whole time. Stop it. Stop it. I hope you go out of business. Now, let me tell you about Vision Computers. They won't yell at you. They'll help you. They'll help you with your tech needs. They'll help you build computers, upgrade computers. They will help you with your managed IT services. They can keep you up and operational. Your employees can be really, really good at their jobs. And they don't have to be tech support for their computers. They get a special number they can call. And in 15 seconds or less, an actual human being will talk to them and help them figure out their computer needs. You can call them at 404-COMPUTE. Or go to visioncomputers.com to learn more. They help people nationwide. They help companies nationwide. Now, here's the thing. You can do this for yourself as well. If you are in the market for a new PC, you can let Vision build it for you, and then you get that special number. And if you ever have a question or a problem, you can call that number, and it comes with the computer. In fact, businesses, if you're in the market for new computers, you buy the computer from Vision, and then the managed IT service comes with the computer. Call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. Let your employees and yourself be productive at your jobs. Let Vision be productive at your computers. It's a great way to get work done and make your business soar with Vision Computers. President of the United States is going to be in Rome, Georgia on Thursday to talk about his economic policies and how they're benefiting the middle class. He'll also be campaigning there with his pick for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat, Clay Fuller, except the president on Air Force One today forgot he had endorsed Fuller and said he would have to pick someone in the race. He's already endorsed Fuller. Fuller and Tom Gray, two great candidates. I'm supporting Tom Gray, the president. Fuller, Clay Fuller, they're good candidates. The president will be in Rome to talk about his economic impact and how it's benefiting manufacturing and the like on Thursday. Good to see him out there selling his economic agenda. Now, I got to talk about something else the president wants to do, and there's a punchline here. If you want your laugh for the day, consider this. The Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security because they want reform from ICE and Border Patrol. ICE and Border Patrol are already funded through 2028, so they can't shut down those departments within the Department of Homeland Security. So they're shutting down FEMA, TSA, and the Coast Guard, and the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General, who today released a statement that his office is unable to actually engage in inspections of allegations of abuse by ICE and Border Patrol. Since Homeland Security is shut down, the Inspector General can't actually pursue violations of the law by ICE and Border Patrol. Well done, Democrats. Well done. But it's not just that. They've shut down FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. FEMA has problems. Even Democrats increasingly admit FEMA needs to be just restructured, but FEMA can be useful at times of natural disaster. And the biggest environmental disaster in recent years is playing out in the Washington, D.C. area on the banks of the Potomac. Now, it happened with a Democratic governor of Maryland, a Democratic governor of Virginia, and a Democratic majority in the Washington, D.C. Council with their Democratic mayor. And so the National Press Corps has chosen not to highlight on ABC, CBS, NBC, or even PBS the massive ecological environmental disaster playing out on the banks of the Potomac River. When I was a kid, the Exxon Valdez ran aground in Alaska and poured out 11 million barrels of oil. And there were pictures of seagulls and seals and other marine wildlife that were covered in oil and dead. Volunteers went to Alaska to wash the birds and the seals and anything they could save from the Exxon Valdez. Exxon had to pay massive amounts of money for the environmental damage, and the Exxon Valdez became a rallying cry for environmentalists against petroleum. Deepwater Horizon blew up in the Gulf of Mexico, the British Petroleum oil rig, turned into a Mark Wahlberg movie, I think, led to a massive oil spill that eventually drifted north, landing on the beaches of Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana. In Florida and the Carolinas and California, they have fought tooth and nail to stop offshore drilling because they don't want oil spills washing onto the shores of their tourist-driven beaches. None of those oil spills compared to the Exxon Valdez and its 11 million gallons. Well, we now have 300 million gallons spilled out on the Potomac. Except it's raw sewage, not oil. See, if it was oil, then the media could do a story on it that oil is bad, we should stop doing oil. But this is human waste. There's no angle to blame Donald Trump, although Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, is today blaming Donald Trump for it. What happened is Washington, D.C. has failed to maintain its sewer lines. And a 100-plus-year-old sewer line in Washington, D.C. collapsed, spilling 300 million gallons of raw, untreated sewage into the Potomac. By the way, it's going to take them months to fix it because, God forbid, they fix it rapidly. They've actually got spillover pumps pumping the sewage out of the Potomac into a canal. Side note, I'm trying not to gag while I talk about this. I mean, you're used to the sewage in Washington, D.C., but that's metaphorical. This is real stuff. And the National Press Corps hasn't wanted to talk about it. And there are a couple of reasons why. One, because it's not oil. It's not something that they can condemn to try to ban it. You can't ban people from pooping. And it's Democratic incompetence. There's no Republicans to blame. They'll try to blame Donald Trump eventually. In fact, the president said yesterday the federal government is going to step in to protect the Potomac River. He accused local officials of mismanaging waste management systems. It may be an accusation, but it's real. And he's directing federal authorities, in his words, quote, to immediately provide all necessary management, direction, and coordination to protect the Potomac, the water supply in the capital region, and our treasured national resources in our nation's capital city. The federal government is not at all involved with what has taken place, but we can fix it. But remember, even in that case, with the Democrat shutdown, we'll have to bring in true patriots to do the work because many are not working right now. And, that's kind of the point. The Democrats, remember, they shut down the Department of Homeland Security. FEMA is in the Department of Homeland Security. FEMA can't fully operate because the Democrats shut down the Department of Homeland Security. And so the media can't cover the sewage in the Potomac because it would be a damning indictment of Democratic governance. They can't scream about it like it's oil and say we should ban oil because it's poop. They can't attack the government incompetence because it's 100% Democrats. They can't attack the president trying to fix it because it's the Democrats who shut down FEMA. There is no way to blame the Republicans for what happened. Therefore, the story has not been covered by the national news. But, you know and I know. You know and I know that they will find a way. In fact, Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, is trying, saying that the federal government is the one responsible for the Potomac Interceptor, the name of the sewer line, adding that in the last 4 weeks, the Trump administration has failed to act, shrinking its responsibility and putting people's health at risk, while Maryland has played its part in helping coordinate the response. See, it's a sleight of hand. This is controlled by Washington, D.C., but D.C. is controlled by the federal government technically. But remember, D.C. has allowed the government has allowed Washington, D.C. to operate itself. And Washington, D.C. decided to elect a whole bunch of Democrats who have run the city into the ground. Crime is now down in D.C. because the President of the United States sent in the National Guard. It's actually a very massive ecological and environmental disaster. Environmentalists are saying it actually is one of the worst sewage spills in American history, and also one of the worst environmental disasters in American history. They're now asking people to please stop flushing those flushable wipes down the toilet. Arlington, Virginia is asking residents to please stop. Apparently, it was a wad of wipes contributed to the sewage overflow at the ruptured sewage pipe upstream from Arlington, Virginia on the Potomac River. Flushable wipes don't break down easily, despite manufacturers' claims, says the Department of Environmental Services spokeswoman Katie O'Brien. A toilet is designed to remove only human waste and bathroom tissue with each flush. Sending other items down the drain like wipes threatens a home or business's plumbing. Arlington's sanitary sewer system and ultimately the water pollution control plant where wastewater is treated are also threatened. I'm not giving up the dude wipes that I occasionally use in addition to the toilet paper. It's only a matter of time before the left decides to ban them, isn't it? E. coli levels in Arlington, Virginia's portion of the river have decreased dramatically over the last few weeks. On January 29th, water samples at Fletcher's Boathouse across the river from Potomac Overlook Park reached 14,300 E. coli per 100 milliliters. On February 8th, it was 260, which is fantastic. The problem is there's a 73-mile stretch of the Potomac that has been contaminated, and emergency repairs could take up to 6 weeks. Friends, Democrats are to blame here. It is Democrats in Washington, D.C. that have failed to update the sewer system in D.C. It is Democrats in Virginia, D.C., and Maryland who have failed to contain the spill. It is Democrats who are taking weeks and weeks and weeks to fix the problem. It's like the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Maryland. We'll get to it later, but now they say it might not be fixed until 2030 to 2032. Remember when that bridge got hit by a boat and collapsed? If Ron DeSantis were in charge of Maryland, the Francis Scott Key Bridge would have been built back the next week. If Greg Abbott of Texas or Brian Kemp of Georgia were in charge in D.C. right now as the mayor of D.C., God forbid they'd ever want that job, the system would be fixed. But the Democrats don't fix these things. And the national media has no incentive to cover it because it would make Democratic governance look bad. I kind of feel like some of you are probably thinking, Erickson, why are you spending so much time on this? Because it doesn't affect anybody in your listening audience. You don't have anybody except I have a massive online audience in Washington, D.C. A lot of people there listen because there's only one major news talk program, and a lot of people in D.C. have started tuning into me online. But the real reason is because this would be a national story if this were Republicans. If you don't believe me, consider the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. In Jackson, Mississippi, their entire safe drinking water system broke down. The New York Times felt compelled to do a story about how it was a process of the latent systemic racism of Mississippi that caused the problem. The white racist Republicans had failed to help the city of Jackson in Mississippi, despite repeated warnings that they needed to do something about their plumbing system. It was white racism, and the New York Times found a way to blame Republicans and white racism and do a major front page story about the water treatment facility of Jackson, Mississippi, where there are probably a dozen total New York Times subscribers. They've done stories in Florida about Ron DeSantis's management of public resources and how it harms the people of Florida. But they can't bring themselves to talk about one of the largest sewage spills in American history that is happening not far from New York, where there are a lot of New York Times subscribers on both sides of the Potomac. Even the Washington Post, the local newspaper in Washington, has largely not covered the story. They've given lip service to it and moved on. It's like the Kermit Gosnell abortion story where the Washington Post years ago said, well, it was a local crime story. We're not going to cover it. This is a local story in Washington, D.C., and they're not covering it because there's no way to make Democratic governance look good. There's no way for them to blame Donald Trump. The moment they find a way to blame Donald Trump, they will cover the story. Until then, silence from the media elite. Now, shifting gears here before I step out to commercial break. Jesse Jackson has died. Jesse Jackson was a civil rights leader who marched with Martin Luther King Jr. He founded the Rainbow Push Coalition. He ran for president of the United States, I think twice. Came close at one point, it seemed like, to getting the Democratic nomination, but not close enough. He was known as a major shakedown artist of American corporations to fund his nonprofit. And that's all I need to say about Reverend Jackson's death. This hour of the program is brought to you by Van Allen Golf, makers of exquisite golf putters and more equipment coming. Y'all, I'm effusive with praise from him. If you text the word golf to 33777, you can get the link, or just go to vanallengolf.com. What really, really stands out for him is, so the guys who make Van Allen golf putters are also the geniuses behind True Precision, the firearms manufacturer, and they use a lot of the same milling techniques. And so the milling of their putters is hands down the best you're going to find in the golf world because they're experts at milling because of their years of making the guns at True Precision. The putters really stand out. They really are that good. I have one. It's got a ceramic shaft. It's the balance. Everything is great. VanAllenGolf.com. Go check them out. James Tallarico can't be on the Stephen Colbert Show, according to CBS's lawyers, and Stephen Colbert is upset about it. There's something called equal time. You're in an election now in Texas, and Stephen Colbert wanted to give James Tallarico an advantage on broadcast air over his Democratic opponent, Jasmine Crockett, and also the Republicans, John Cornyn and Ken Paxton. And CBS's lawyer said this would be a problem with the equal time rule. It's not good to air this interview. And so Stephen Colbert is upset, and Democrats claim it's censorship. No, it's broadcast television. If you put on a candidate during the election to just fawn over them, not a news story, then you got to give the other candidate equal time too. It's a commonly held rule. Now, what Stephen Colbert says is, well, they've never applied the equal time rule to shows like his, except during election season, they did. Saturday Night Live itself got in trouble with an attempt to have Kamala Harris on before the election in 2024. It may be a different network, but same rules apply. But the Democrats don't care. Meanwhile, maybe they should have on Don Huffines in Texas, who's running for comptroller in Texas. Man's got a lot of money. He's dumped a lot of money into the race. It turns out he had enough money to buy Jeffrey Epstein's sex dungeon in the desert. The Epstein Ranch in New Mexico, where Epstein was documented to have abused a lot of young women, underage girls. Huffines, he bought it. Now, superficially, there's nothing wrong with this. Except he tried to cover up buying it. Why would you cover it up? Why not make a big show out of it and that you're buying this land, you're going to tear down Epstein's house, you're going to salt the ground, and you're going to give the money to the victims? He didn't do that. He tried to cover up, and only now that it's been exposed, he's like, well, the money went to the victims. The lawyers for Epstein's estate don't exactly confirm that. And this is someone the Republicans want to put up in Texas. Texas Republicans, please don't commit a murder-suicide with our chances this year. Please. Now, let me tell you guys about Old Glory Bank, my great bank. They're headquartered out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and they are great people, and they would be a great bank for you to do business with. You go to oldglorybank.com/Eric, oldglorybank.com/ERICK. So Old Glory Bank, it really is my bank. I have a no-fee checking and no-fee savings account with them. They have interest-bearing checking accounts, and if you're active duty military, they'll waive fees for you. They are very, very, very responsive to the veteran, first responder, and active duty military community. They've been helping homeless veterans get checking accounts. They're great with businesses. They learn your business, so if the time ever comes for you to do lending, well, they know your business and they know you, and you have a great point of contact at Old Glory Bank, even though they're an online bank. They're very hands-on. oldglorybank.com/Eric. That's oldglorybank.com/ERICK. Reach out to Old Glory Bank. See if they might be a great fit for you. Again, they actually are my bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply.